Hello. In this talk, I'll share the work that we've done to enable passwordless authentication in GDM. So my name is Joan. I work at Red Hat. I'm a software engineer, and I'm one of the maintainers in GDM, and I'll also contribute to GNOME Remote Desktop and related areas. You can find me at joantolo@redhat.com, and my GitLab account is joantolo. The agenda of this talk, we will begin explaining what is passwordless authentication, then how GDM does authentication, the current limitations that GDM has, the solution that we've tried to implement to improve, reduce the limitations, and we'll finalize with a conclusion. Passwordless authentication. What is authenticating passwordless? Well, surprise, without using a password. This is usually done when you do multi-factor authentication, when you authenticate with multiple mechanisms, like using a passkey or face recognition, and also it's used in single sign-on. This strengthens the security by relying in public cryptography keys rather than in the human brain, which reduces the risks and threats and improves the user experience. In free IPA and SSD, there are currently some passwordless authentication mechanisms available, such as passkey, aka FIDO2 token, smart card, and also external identity providers through the OAuth 2 protocol. GDM authentication. What is GDM? GDM is the GNOME Display Manager and is the program in charge of doing a graphical authentication and starting a graphical user session. Usually, when you use GDM, you will do a password authentication, as you can see here. But it can also do a smart card authentication. If you enable the smart card authentication in GDM settings and map a smart card certificate with a user, you will see these certificate lists and insert the PIN and authenticate. And also, GDM supports fingerprint authentication. The same thing, you enable fingerprint authentication in GDM settings and enroll a fingerprint with a user, and then you will see this text here that says, place your finger on the reader, and then you will be able to authenticate. Now, for those who are wondering how does GDM authenticate, now it's going to be explained. What you see here is GNOME Shell. The GNOME Shell is the window manager, and Wayland Compositor is the program in charge of rendering the icons and texts on the display. And this is a special GNOME Shell, is running in greeter mode to allow authenticating, and it's running as an unprivileged user called GDM greeter user. So to authenticate, we need some privileges that GDM greeter user doesn't have. So how does the authentication? Well, communicating with GDM. So GDM, for each GNOME shell, is going to create two private DBA servers. One is going to be used between GDM and GNOME shell, and the other one between the process that is doing the PAM conversation and GDM. Now, moving on the GNOME shell side. So there's this private DBA server, and GDM is exposing a DBA object, exposing an interface called user verifier, which will be used by GNOME shell. Usually, in the GNOME shell side, when you start password authentication, the GNOME shell will call the method begin verification, passing the PAM service GDM password, because it's doing password authentication. If it was going to do smart card authentication, it would pass GDM smart card PAM service. Then GDM will send some signals like secret info query, which makes GNOME shell ask for a password, and also could send info signal to display some extra text on the screen. And then the user would insert the password, then GNOME shell will call the method answer query with this password, and then the authentication, if it succeeds, GDM will send verification complete signal, and the new user session will be started. Great. Now let's move on the other side, the PAM conversation. So to do a PAM conversation, GDM for each PAM service is going to spawn a process called GDM session worker. So the private debug server is going to be shared between this session worker and GDM. So there's this private debug server, and in this case, the session worker is exposing a worker interface, and GDM is exposing a worker manager interface. And each one is going to use the other one to share the information. Usually, for a PAM conversation, you have different stages, and GDM iterates through these different interfaces, calling the initialize, authenticate, authorize, establish credentials, and open, the different PAM stages. At the same time, the session worker is setting up the PAM conversation. It's setting a handler to receive PAM messages. So the session worker could receive a PAM message of type PAM text info, which is translated in the session worker calling info method. And at the same time, GDM forwards this info method to GNOME shell. Or it could receive the PAM prompt echo off, which is the one that is asking for the password. The session worker translates that into calling the secret info query, and GDM forwards that to the GNOME shell. Then, on the GNOME shell side, the user will insert the password that will be received by GDM, and the password will be returned in this secret info query return, and then the authentication will succeed or fail. Good. So everything works, it's fine, but there are some limitations. The PAM conversation is a bit rigid because the communication is blind. It treats all messages as text. And that is not very good for if we want to support some other special methods like passkey or external identity providers where we might require special messages like touch the device or show a web view. In some setups that you require, like in big organizations, they usually provide some multiple authentication methods, like, for instance, authenticating through passkey or using a smart card. And in the current design in GDM, you are not allowed to choose between different methods on real time. You only get prompt with one, and that's it. There's also some UX, like the UX could be improved. Like in the smart card certificates, the information doesn't fit properly in the buttons. And the last thing, we cannot support zero trust architecture if we don't support some extra methods that require to extend the UI. So we tried to improve the situation. The first thing that was done was defining a new PAM extension. And there's a special PAM message of type PAM binary prompt, which is just a stream of bytes. So if the PAM module and the GDM receiver agree on a specific format, then you have what in GDM is called the extension messages. In this case, we've created an extension called custom JSON, which just allows to send and receive JSON messages. So going back to the communication that we were having with GDM and the session worker, now the session worker can receive the PAM type PAM binary prompt, and it will parse this message. And it will detect, oh, this is an extension message of custom JSON type. And then the session worker will call the new method called custom JSON request that is sending this JSON message. GDM will forward this to GNOME shell, which also supports JSON messages now. The user will select the authentication method, insert a password or whatever is required, and then reply with another JSON message that will be returned in this method, and the authentication will go on. This new extension is supported by SSSD and authd. We have two new PAM services for that, the GDM switchable auth and GDM authd. And now, if we use the SSSD backend, the format of the JSON message is, as you see here. So now, with one single PAM service, you start the conversation, and you will receive a JSON message that provides the current available mechanisms for a user. For instance, you can receive here a list of a password mechanism and also smart card mechanism and some extra information like the certificates for the smart card. And then the user, once does the authentication and everything, will return the selected authentication mechanism and the answer, like it might be the password or the PIN or whatever. And well, this is great because in the past, for different mechanisms, we needed different PAM services, and we had to have like different PAM conversations. And now, with one single PAM service, we are supporting multiple mechanisms at the same time. And this is a great improvement. And this results in some UI changes. Now, as you can see here, we can select between the different available authentication mechanisms, and also we still can select the available session types. The smart card UI has been improved, as I was mentioning before. So now the certificates are like look better, and you can see better like the organization information of the certificate with the icon that it's on the right corner. And then we've added support for the new passkey mechanism. This is a mechanism, is a two-step authentication. The first you are asked for the PIN of the passkey, and then you are asked to touch the security key. And we've added also support for the web login mechanism. In this case, this is authenticating using the external identity provider. And you have to access to an external site and authenticate there. Here we provide a QR code so you can access there. In the future, we would like to also add an embedded web view inside the login screen. And the last change, now in the lock screen, you will see in the corner a small icon informing when the fingerprint reader is active, when the fingerprint authentication is available for this user. Yes, and now I'm going to show you a demo of authenticating with the new methods. The first method is passkey. Oh. Even with a video, the demo sometimes. Let me try to. Or download it, yeah. Maybe but I won't download it now. Okay, now it works. So there's the passkey user that has enabled passkey authentication. And you insert the PIN, and then you are requested to touch the security key. You touch it, and then you have authenticated if the PIN was the right one. And also the external identity provider. In this case, we are using GitHub as the external identity provider. So you get the QR code, and I just access through the link in my browser. I inserted the code that is displayed in the login screen. And then I just have to authenticate in GitHub, and that should be it. And I just have to press the Done button in the login screen and authenticate it. Conclusions. So this new feature has been included since SSSD 2.12.0 version, and for GNOME, we have the intention of having this available for the 51 release. There's just one last merge request in the GNOME shell. It's like the main merge request, and If we are inspired and motivated, we might merge it in this conference. Future enhancements, what we would like to do in the future. As I was mentioning, to be able to have an embedded web view in the login screen. Also, we would like to improve the PAM communication using a file descriptor to send and receive JSON messages instead of relying in the PAM architecture. And also, now that we've dropped Xorg support, we would like to move some GDM bits into systemd so other elements in the stack can adopt it, like starting and stopping graphical user sessions or and doing the authentication. There's currently a live discussion to decide how it will be the authentication protocol that would be used by other elements in the stack, like GDM, KDE, SSSD, or Polkit. Some reference links. We have 2 blogs. The first one is more to explain more into details how has been the interface using JSON messages. And the second one is explaining how the PAM communication has been improved. I think Iker is the author of both. And credits to Iker Pedrosa and Ray Strode. Those are the ones that started this project, and then Ray Strode started to work in a different area, and I took over and tried to get it to the finish line. And also to Marco Treviño, who's been working since the beginning, helping a lot in all the required areas. So thank you a lot to all of you. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have questions.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Can you show an example of how you would configure which authentication methods are required or can be used?
For configuring the authentication methods, in GDM, it relies on dconf, and usually, GDM has a dconf path called GDM login screen or something. It's GDM settings or no. It's login screen. Yeah. Org GNOME login screen. So you would go to etc/dconf, and there you add the setting in the org GNOME login screen, and you would find there the enable passkey auth, or enable password auth, or enable smartcard auth, and that's how you, if it's then available for the user, you might get it on the login screen.
Okay, can you hear me? So thank you for the presentation. This is pretty cool. My question is a bit related to the one from the previous person. I'm interested in how this works at the configuration level, because typically in PAM, you have a configuration file for a service, and you have a list of modules, and they are tried in sequential order. So if you want to add the possibility to let the user choose which method to use, how does that work exactly? Like, does it need changes in PAM itself or in the PAM configuration? How would the PAM configuration look like?
You're asking how to let the user choose?
If I understood it from the video one video that you showed earlier, there was like a wheel, the setting wheel, where you could choose what authentication method you want to use.
Yeah.
If you have several ones.
Yeah.
How does that work at the PAM level? Because PAM is very limited in the sense that you only have a list of modules that are tried in sequential order.
Like, they try to bypass the PAM limitations, so is the PAM module, in this case is PAM SSSD, the one that has like support for the different authentication mechanisms. And then in this PAM module, it's PAM underline SSSD.so. That's the one that is sending the JSON message, and is the one that is sending the different supported authentication methods. So you don't have to like specify anything in the PAM module. It's all in the authentication backend and to display it or not in GDM settings as well.
Okay, so at the PAM level, PAM SSD takes care of that and takes care of then showing, talking to GDM and showing what are the available methods, etc. And is this PAM SSD tied to GDM, or is it generic enough that it should work in any?
You see, you said the PAM SSD is tied to GDM?
Yeah, is it specific to GNOME, or is it generic and it should work in any?
Currently, it's supported only by GDM login screen, but I guess if other login screen like the KDE Plasma added support for JSON messages, it could use it. Like GDM is not, SSD is not like, it worked. It started working as first implementation for GDM, but it could work as well for Plasma login.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have time for like one more question? If anyone.
So now with those multiple authentication methods that are available, I'm just trying to think in my head, which one of those would be available if you were doing the GNOME remote desktop login, and how would those be limited if they were not supported?
Yeah, that's a good question. It would be like it would work the same way when you use the external identity provider, because you would just get the QR code the same way. But for instance, when you want to do a smart card authentication, in this case you are connecting remotely, so you wouldn't be, like when you connect remotely, you would be able to use the smart cards that are connected to the remote system, not the ones that are on your remote client. But I've worked this last year in adding also support for using the smart cards through the remote client. For passkey, I think it's not supported like remotely. Yeah, you would be able to access to the smart card that is connected locally, but in this case, because you are remotely, you won't be able to touch the passkey device, so it wouldn't work. Yeah.
This is great work, by the way. This is cool.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
I think we don't have any more time for questions for this talk, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you.